Welcome to Psyched for Psychology, a Nystrom & Associates podcast. Our hosts, Michelle Iverson and Brett Cushing, are both licensed marriage and family therapists at Nystrom & Associates. Each week, they talk about all things mental health and therapy, and you get a chance to dive into specific psychology topics that help promote personal development and wellness. And now, here are your hosts, Michelle and Brett.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of Psyched for Psychology. We are thrilled to have with us today a client of Nystrom & Associates. We have with us today Vicky. Vicky, who has been with Nystrom & Associates for about 3 years. And we thought during this holiday season, when we are looking for hope, and we're trying to manage all of those expectations we've talked about before, we thought, rather than just give advice and input and education, we want to inspire people with a true story of how much of what we've talked about on this podcast has been put into place and how it's really changed someone's life. So sit back, enjoy, and I am very confident you'll be encouraged and find hope in today's podcast. Vicky, welcome.
Thank you for joining us. We're so excited to have you here.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
You're excited and a little bit nervous.
Very nervous.
Wow.
That's okay.
It's all good. That's okay. We understand that, and we want to understand your story. So I know you've said some really just profound things that we've talked about. What can you describe for us what your life was like maybe 3 years ago?
Oh. It was scary, right? I felt like I wasn't safe in my own head. It was constant terror, like always terrified and worried, and everything was always negative and horrible. And one thing would happen, and then it would just kind of like, it'd be like a snowball effect. And I felt like I could never just grab life and like be me. It was always just trying to be what everybody wanted me to be and not knowing who I was. And it was hard. It was, I think, the worst time of my life. So
during that time, worst time of your life, 3 years ago, what do you think was going on and contributing to that? Like a lot of it you said was kind of in my mind. So hearing a lot of how you were thinking, what was contributing to that, do you think?
I was getting a divorce. I was married for about 7 years and leaving that and starting a new relationship and trying to not let other people's opinions of the decision I was making affect me. Reminding myself that I was doing what's best for me and my children, and the environment we were in wasn't safe for me, so it wasn't safe for them. And still trying to leave that like manipulative situation, telling myself I'm doing what was best for them, but then feeling guilty for leaving or letting him manipulate me and with the way that I saw things. And it was more of like, you have mental issues, you can't be a good mom, you can't take care of these kids by yourself, you're bringing this person that the kids don't know into their lives, and you're making these horrible decisions. And although there were people who were telling me like, no, you're doing what's best for you and the kids, it was still that feeling of failure. Because I don't like to fail. I don't like to like not do good, and feeling like, okay, maybe they have a right to say that I'm messing up my life because they're seeing it. They're seeing more than what I can see. And then leaving the relationship that I left after my marriage, again, it was like another failure, another like, there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough to be in a relationship with somebody. I'm not worthy of true love or the meaning of someone caring for me. Or maybe I am too much, or maybe I am the problem and everything that is happening is my fault. And what if I am really not a good mom and I'm not a good, person in general? I always thought I was a good person, a kind person. I was like, but everything that's been happening, the main thing was me. So maybe it was me. And I just started thinking about myself, like, in a negative side, like, no, I am the problem. I am the reason why, my kids are suffering and my marriage ended and my relationship ended, and I was going to school, but I wasn't succeeding like I used to. Mm-hmm. So then it just kind of, everything that I looked forward to, because I love being a mom, but it didn't give me joy anymore.
So what I hear is you are a pretty determined person, and I cannot fail, and yet at the same time, and I'm a failure. I cannot fail, and I'm a failure. And wow, that's a really tough thing to be living with. This is unacceptable, but this is who I am. And so therefore I'm unacceptable. Yeah. That's really tough. And we talked, we even did a podcast on this before, Michelle, like on domestic violence. And would you say that's what you were experiencing during that time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so a lot of times women, they find themselves in this double bind in a domestic violent relationship. I'm doomed if I stay, and I'm extremely vulnerable if I leave. And I know you've talked about that. Like, if leaving was a very scary proposition for you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then what kind of happened? Like, what other things were going on for you? You're, getting a divorce, going through a divorce about 3 years ago. Then what happened?
It was really scary because, everyone told me, like, he had no right when it came to court to take the kids from me. But he would constantly say, you're too mentally unstable to care for these children. And I was like, okay, maybe I am. And my fear was always, someone takes my kids from me. Yeah. So, like, what did I have to do? So I went to the doctor and I told him, I was like, I'm no longer safe in my own head. I'm no longer safe alone. I need to do something because I don't want to cause harm to myself or my children anymore. And we looked into meds and we looked into, ADT, and they're like, because I knew I had depression, I knew I had anxiety, but it felt more than that. It felt way more than that. And I got diagnosed with PTSD and borderline. And I was like, it started making more sense. And then when they're like, well, there's this, DBT, and I was like, what's that? Because I didn't want to be committed into a hospital, right? Because the thing that gave me hope was my kids. Mm-hmm. That was like literally the only thing I was holding on to was, them. Because they would always tell me, no, mommy, you're a good mommy. You're a good mommy. You're a great mommy. I was like, thanks. So what did I have to do to see myself the way that they see me? Mm-hmm. So they told me, you have to go here and you have to do this. And I was like, wait, a whole year? That's too much. That's too much commitment. I was like, I can't do it. They're like, no, if you want to, get better, this is what we have to do. And at first, I remember I fought it. I fought
going to DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. Yeah, it's quite an investment of time and energy. A whole year, I think it's like 3 hours a week, 2 hours of group, 1 hour of therapy. So that was. You were feeling overwhelmed, and then like, hey, I've got hope. Oh wow, this is really overwhelming to do this for a whole year.
I didn't have to drive all the way because I can't do the driving.
Why couldn't you do the driving?
In my marriage, he drove. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that I could, get in my own vehicle and like drive wherever I wanted to drive. It was, he had control of that. Mm-hmm. So I had never been, allowed to drive out of town. And this was in the cities. Mm-hmm. A whole, more than an hour away. And I was like, I'm not capable of doing that. Mm-hmm. I've never been allowed to do that. How am I going to do that? So then every time I would drive that hour and I would make it there, I was like shaking. Mm-hmm. I was terrified. And it was, you would see me there and he was like, you made it though. You're here. And I was like, I'm scared, crying. And the first couple of times driving was, but I'm not capable of this. I've always been told I'm not allowed to do this. I'm not strong enough to do this. And then the traffic and got overwhelming. And then now I'm like, I want to go to the cities. I'm going to go to the cities. I want to go to Illinois. I'm going to drive in Illinois. I'm going to go in the car and I'm going to go. So.
And you made it here this morning.
I know.
because there was a lot of snow on the way in from where you were coming, and you saw some accidents, and so there are still things you struggle through, and we all do. So it sounds like at this time there was just completely overwhelmed, and you were self-destructing. You had some self-destructive urges and things, and that was really kind of overwhelming and intruding on, is it fair to say, kind of every area of life for you?
Oh, yeah. I dropped out of school for 2 years.
Right. Where are you now with school?
I have 3 more days and then I graduate.
Congrats. That's so exciting.
That's great.
I got my phlebotomy certificate in May. And then last fall, I got my certified nursing assistant and my trained medication aid certificate as well. And then now I go with my AA degree.
Yeah.
Wow. So you did DBT 3 hours a week, and you were going to school, and you got kiddos, single mom. So I think people can understand why we got Vicky on the show today. This is a great story, isn't it?
And the whole time you were telling yourself you were incapable.
It was hard because there was very few people that believed in me, and they were strangers. There were people from group.
So, people believed in you and they would validate you. And I'm guessing you just said, oh, thanks very much. How did you respond to that validation?
I'm still not good at validation. We work on that all the time. Because I'm not used to it. I'm not used to somebody being like, oh, no, I understand how that's hard for you. And you did a great job. It's always been like, oh, you're fine. Get over it. Or it's not a big deal. And just got minimized all the time of like my feelings and how hard things really were for me, and having people actually being like, no, you're doing great, you're doing amazing, you're working hard, it's life is difficult, and for people with borderline it's really, really hard. It's super hard. And I try to explain to people, like, we feel things so much more than people actually understand. So something that's super small to them, to us, is just, the end of the world, pretty much. And being told, like, you're overreacting was difficult to not have anybody really understand what I was trying to, talk about. Like, oh, you're getting a divorce. People get divorced all the time. It's no big deal. Well, I'm going to be a single mom. Oh, you've done it before. You're fine.
It's actually this concept about traumatic invalidation that I think a lot of clients experience. And when you keep getting that kind of feedback from people, trying to minimize the pain and suffering that you are going through, it just adds on to that invalidation.
And it reminds me of something we try to highlight here in the podcast over and over again, is kind of like people would look at you and be like, what's your problem? People get divorced over and over again. What is your problem? You're overreacting. And what we try to urge a lot on our podcast is not to look at people and think, what's their problem? But try to reframe that and think, I wonder what's going on with them. And that's what you needed. And even though you would have people validate that, that was hard to receive too at the same time. I'm glad you brought up borderline personality disorder, because we did talk about that once, and people can go and refer to that podcast as well.
We'll link to it,
Yeah. So now you're in dialectical behavior therapy, full 1-year commitment, 3 hours a week, plus you're driving an hour one way twice a week. So that's like an extra 4 hours. Going to school, got kiddos.
Had 2 jobs.
2 jobs. Yeah. So how did you get through, and what happened in your journey? How did therapy, dialectical behavior therapy, how did that affect you?
It was hard because I was alone. Like, I had my family, they're like, oh, we support you, is what they would tell me, that they supported me. But they didn't understand how to support me. And I'm going from this person who was very quiet and kind of just did everything that everyone told me to do, and, kind of stayed in my little shell, to changing everything and trying to use skills. And at first, like, I would try to, like, stand up for myself and, like, set boundaries and, like, use skills. And I'd be like, no, I can't do that. This isn't accepted. Like, this isn't allowed.
So you're changing the rules.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the rules of the family, you're changing. And so it's hard enough people are saying, well, calm down. You need to not overreact. Now you're trying these skills in DBT, and it's totally going against all the rules. And now it's like, boy, what is wrong with you, right, in the family?
Because it made me feel like maybe I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Because now I'm causing problems. That's what I thought. I was like, no, I'm doing this. It's supposed to be helping, but it's causing problems at my house with my parents. Like, we're constantly fighting all the time. With the guy that my kids call dad, that he like raised them for a while. It was causing issues, and I would go back in therapy and being told, no, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing for yourself. But if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing for myself, why is it causing problems at home? Why am I constantly, fighting everyone around me? And it was because they weren't used to the person I was trying to become.
Right.
They're used to, like, me not having a voice, not standing up for myself, and kind of just letting them walk all over me. And it was hard to remind myself all the time, like, I was doing what's best for me. I was doing what's best for my children. And using skills. We have these little books with all the
little flashcards with the skills on them. Yeah.
I carry that with me all the time.
Yeah.
It's in my car right now too.
Yeah.
To remind myself, like, there's a reason why, like, I'm using these skills. And sometimes I would have to remind myself, and I'd have to, like, search through it. Now I can kind of pull them out if I need them.
You're fluent. You're fluent in all the skills. Well, wait a second. What's the skill you're not fluent in?
Radical acceptance.
Radical acceptance. Your favorite skill. We did a podcast on that too, on radical acceptance. So what happens if a little test, okay, you're like totally on the spot here. No. What happens if we don't do radical acceptance? Like pain and injustice plus non-acceptance equals what?
In my life, chaos. Disaster, issues.
Right.
Non-stop problems.
Right. Yeah. Suffering.
Yeah. A lot of that.
Yeah. But when we apply radical acceptance, and I think you just did recently, and you're starting to become really fluent in that, we move from suffering to what? What's your life like when you practice radical acceptance?
It's good. It's happy. I know there's a word, but that word's not coming out.
Well, those are great words. I love those words.
Yeah.
Happy. We survive. We can have serenity. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting. I remember once you talked about happiness. What was happiness like? How often did you experience that in your life before?
It was non-existent. It was only like in movies. You get kind of like I always thought it was more of like those little kids when you go into the candy store, right? That's what I thought happiness was. Like, you're just all this joy and happiness, and like you see all this and you're always happy. I got it maybe every once in a while. Just a couple seconds, and then went back to not feeling like it was permanent. It wouldn't stay long. It was little moments of my life that have always been, like my kids being born or things like that, but they were just small.
What's happiness like in your life now today?
Constantly. I am always laughing. I'm always smiling, and I feel like my heart is full. Like, it's heavy, that it's I'm just constantly looking forward to the day. Like, I can wake up, and regardless of like whatever I have going on, I am happy. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to, go through the day, or, even if something bad happens, driving and spill coffee all over me, which I did one time going to DBT, and it literally just spilled all over me, and instead of getting mad, I started laughing. I was like, yep, that would happen.
I don't know if I would have responded like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I would.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Usually, I would have been like, God, man, and like this ruined my whole day.
Yeah.
Like everything was going fine, and this and that, whatever. Like, and now it's just like, yep, it would be me. It would happen, especially when I like shower and get my hair done, and like, you know, these are the last clean pants I have, and I just spilled coffee in them, and I'm just like, okay. It'll dry. We're good. I'm gonna smell like coffee for a bit, but we're
new perfume line.
Yeah.
Kind of that coffee smell. Yeah. You were able to laugh, which is interesting because that is one of the DBT skills we talk about. Part of that please skill. And so you're able to laugh. And some people even go so far as to say laughter is the best medicine. So
Brett's like, Michelle, you're going to be linking a lot of podcasts.
Well, Vicky's using them all.
I know.
It's great.
It's awesome.
So actually what I hear in terms of the role of happiness is like your life is it an overstatement to say it was predominantly misery and now it's predominantly happy?
Yeah, I like it. That's how it is.
I wish we had video because Vicky just lights up when she talks about that. You know, she's just all smiles. So you did say something like the coffee would spill on me and my whole day was ruined then, right? From one incident, there was like this all or nothing kind of mentality. Is that something that's changed in your life too, do you think?
Oh, yeah. Yep. I've had arguments with people and they're like, we'll have a discussion and my brain will automatically be like, I can't go back to all or nothing. You know, both and.
Both and, yes.
So much that my kids now say it. They're not allowed to say the word but.
Well, you know, isn't that interesting, Michelle? Because what was she saying about her kids? That was the one thing. And they were seeing all these things happening, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And now, what are they seeing?
Our life has changed.
Because
mine changed.
Yes.
And it's I know that they went through some stuff with me. Like, I know. And we talk about it. And my kids are, they're in therapy too. And we kind of talk about the things that I've learned. And they kind of implement it too. So now my daughter, when somebody's talking to her, especially at my mom's house, she's like, oh, you said but, you can't say but. And they're like, what? Yeah, Mom says we can't say the word but. You can't say the word but. You'd say the word and.
Love it.
I'm like, yes.
Right. Yeah. We really would be sticklers about that. And it's really important to move away from the all or nothing kind of thinking that we would have.
Because it would ruin my whole day. And then I looked back at the day and I was like, there's nothing positive in the day, when in reality there's a bunch of things that happened that I could have been like, oh, I'm proud of this or I'm proud of this. And now I look at the day and I'm like, oh, I've had so many wins. Yeah. Had this happen and I had this and this and this. So it's amazing now to look at my life where it is and to think back at where I was. It sometimes doesn't even feel like it was me. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm like, I couldn't go from that to where I am now. Like, that doesn't seem possible. Mm-hmm. That's like when you say that, that's a movie thing. That's what it feels like. It's like, I feel like a completely different me.
What would you like to say to somebody that's listening? And there may be where you were 3 years ago. A lot of misery, no hope. Don't see, how do I get out of this? A chronic, in self-invalidation. What would you want to say to them? If they were here right now, what would you want to say?
It is hard. It is hard and it feels lonely. But at the end, it's all worth it. To be able to look at yourself and be proud of how far you've come. Because it's not for anybody else. It's for you. It's for you to be able to love yourself and be happy and feel safe in yourself. And the work is hard. And it takes every day you have to remind yourself the reason why you're doing it. And there's moments where you're not going to want to. Mm-hmm. And you have to look back and be like, how far I'm getting, how far I've come. And you're closer to this new person than you are to the person you were before. And it's going to feel lonely. It's going to feel like the whole world is just against you. And you have to remind yourself that you're doing this for you, not for anybody else, for yourself. And the people who truly love you, the people who are truly there for you, will stand by you and will love this person you're becoming, and will respect those boundaries and will respect the choices that you're making for yourself. And it's going to be worth it.
Well, I like that. And it's going to be worth it. Yeah. No, and I appreciate that. It's not all rainbows and unicorns that just show up at therapy, talk a little bit, go home for 3 years, and voila, everything's better. It's hard work. And it's worth it. And I think your story is a compelling story of, I was really in this pit and all alone. And now you're at a completely different place. So I'm hoping, our desire is that your story, Vicky, it's something that brings hope to people. What if somebody were to say, well, yeah, but that worked for her, but it wouldn't for me?
I didn't think it was going to be for me. I really didn't, only because I would constantly give up on myself. Like, I remember coming in, and we had like a really great week. And we talked about all the successes I had. And I come back the next week, and it'd be like, nope, I can't do this anymore. This is the end. Like, this is the worst week I've ever had. I can't do this anymore. And just being like, no, you're doing great. Like, you have setbacks and you have to keep going forward. And I was like, nope, this isn't for me. Like, I can't do this. I'm not capable of doing it. And then I'm here now. So if you want to put that effort and that work, and it can be for anybody, you just have to remind yourself that you have to continue going forward.
So life doesn't get easier. It's not that you don't have adversity. It's not that you don't have challenges. You have skills and you have understanding about yourself. You have a whole different way of thinking about the world. You're actually able to receive validation. And there's the word and. I just heard you say, like, as your own self-talk is, and I'm proud of what I did here, and I'm proud of that I did this. So you're able to even validate yourself. So that's wonderful, but yet life is hard. What's Christmas going to be like this year for you?
Interesting. I'm excited. Because it's going to be very different. I am broker than I've ever been in my life right now.
You say that with a smile.
Yes, because I'm okay. Like, I'm not stressing about it. My bills will get paid when they get paid. My kids and I, we talked about Christmas, and we'll have our own little Christmas when we're financially stable to do so. I did tell my mom that no one's going to get Christmas presents. And she kind of looked at me like, not even a little one? Like, you can't even... I was like, nope. No one's getting anything this year. And she goes, why? I was like, because I'm broke. And she's like, well, what about the kids? I was like, I already talked to them. They understand, and we'll have it when we have time, at our time. I was like, we'll still come for Christmas. The kids will still have their Santa presents, because one way or another, I'm going to make that happen. And we're just going to be here enjoying time. Like, that's it. And she kind of stared at me like, what? And I was like, yeah. I was like, my sister can still bring her presents for her kids. That's perfectly fine. I was like, my kids are understanding the situation we're in, and we're just wanting to enjoy time with you guys. Like, that's it. Which is very different than before. Very different. Because I would have been working way more to make sure that I had enough money for presents for everybody, and have to make sure that my mom approves of the clothes I'm wearing. Not just my mom, my sister. And my sister has to approve my kids' clothes, and does my daughter's hair, and doing what is expected of me all the time, and keeping my kids like, you have to look good, you have to be nice, you have to be respectful, don't get anybody mad, don't say things you're not supposed to, and do this and do that, and I kind of just put all this stress and like pressure on making sure that we don't ruin Christmas. And now I'm doing Christmas the way that's best for me, the way that's best for my kids, where I'm not stressing about it, or I'm not gonna. I have finals to worry about too.
Oh yeah.
I have a lot of things. I'm not gonna make a holiday that's supposed to be about spending time with your family and like enjoying that to be so stressful.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. That's taking all the stuff we talked about in our last 2 holiday podcasts around managing expectations, setting boundaries, not feeling guilty for setting those boundaries. You just did it all. Yeah.
And I remember we talked about maybe like when our expectations aren't met, it's an opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
I gave the example of like my mom's crown roast.
Right.
And I talked to my brother about I talked to my brother Tim about that. Like, hey, remember when Mom did that? We were laughing so hard. You know, he's like, yeah, the roast is, flying across the floor. And we're laughing still about it. And when those expectations aren't met, it's an opportunity to grow. And that's what I'm hearing you say, Vicky, is like, yeah. And I adjust my expectations. And you're making the season not solely about gifting. Mm-hmm. It's about growing. And I see you celebrating the growth, not just with you, but the growth that's happening with your kids. And you're able to celebrate that together. And that's probably the greatest gift you can give your kids.
Yeah. I think always my thing was I have to make sure that I'm doing what's best for my parents, that I don't get them angry, that they don't, make me feel like, I say they make me feel like I'm a bad person for not, having money for this or having money for this or doing this or doing that, whatever they're expecting me to do. And I want my kids to be able to have a relationship with me where they don't feel pressured, like they have to be to a standard. Like, I want you to be you. I want you to, if you want to do this, or if you want to do that, feel comfortable to come talk to me. Where I lived my entire life, like, if I know the choices I make is not to their standard, I can't make that choice. Mm-hmm. I can't do that. And for the first time, like, when I told my mom they weren't getting nothing for Christmas, that thing just came out of my mouth like nothing. Like, I didn't stutter. I wasn't scared. I wasn't nervous. No, I just like, by the way, no one's getting Christmas presents. Mm-hmm. Letting you know. And she's like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm broke. So that's not happening. And I left that house and I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel ashamed. I didn't feel like I need to go apologize. No, I was like, nope. Mm-hmm. I told him. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like, I left and I felt good. I was like, I'm doing better. I'm doing so much better. Overall.
I like what you said. I'm broker than ever. And yet, I don't, as much as I don't like that for you, but I just wanted to point out, like, I'm broker than ever, but I'm better than ever.
Yeah.
I'm freer than ever, than I've ever been. And wow, what a great word of encouragement and inspiration. I've so appreciated you coming on today.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those things where whenever I hear these stories, I don't know if anybody noticed, but I'm like tearing up. I'm
tearing up over here too.
It happens every single time and I think one of the main reasons why we were so happy that you came on to share your story today, because I think we get the wonderful, like, it's an honor as a therapist. Mm-hmm. When we get our clients who've worked with us, whether it's a short time or a long time, and they've seen all of this progress, they get to share that with us. Mm-hmm. And those are, of course, many of my favorite sessions when I get to hear about that reflection and to hear the story of now I see for myself how far I've come. Mm-hmm. Makes me cry every single time, and I will not apologize for that. And even just getting to meet you today, because it's the first time I've gotten to meet you and hear your story, like, I'm over here, I'm starting to like cry a little bit again. And so that's one of the reasons why I thought we were so excited to have you on and to share this with others as well too, that they get the honor to hear about your experience and your journey and all of that amazing work that you've done.
We've talked a lot about the things that I've gone through, and to think that where I am now, I know everything I've gone through can be helpful to other people.
Yeah.
It's hard. it's hard to like look back and be like, I went through all of that. Mm-hmm. Like, how can one person like go through so much and then be standing here today and being like, I'm okay. Yeah. I'm okay. And like, I can look back and be like, yeah, that happened to me. And that happened to me. Okay, that also did too. And I'm still me. Mm-hmm. A better me, actually. The one that I actually look in the mirror and proud of and enjoy to look at. Mm-hmm. I have so much confidence. I was telling my parents, I was like looking through pictures of the past couple weeks, and I'm like actually smiling. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a very beautiful person. Mm-hmm. And they're like, wait, you're acting way too confident. And I was like, that's perfectly fine. I am very proud of me. I am very happy with me. And I've been telling myself, like, I do glow to myself. To myself.
Unbelievable.
Like, I can feel, like, all of this, like, happiness just around me all the time now. And it feels very weird and foreign and, like, something I'm not used to. And it feels so good. It feels so good.
So there's hope. Mm-hmm. There's hope for everybody that's listening, and it's inspirational. Thank you so much for coming and sharing. I'd like to wish you a happy holiday, and I have no doubt that you're going to have one, and you're going to have not a perfect, easy life, and it's also going to be a happy one. Mm-hmm. You've done some great work. Thanks for inspiring us.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys for letting me
come. We're awesome. Actually going to be doing another episode coming up on EMDR. Mm-hmm. And I know you've done some EMDR therapy, and that was instrumental too, right? So just kind of a little trailer or preview that we will be talking about EMDR as a way of helping people, and it's a great way to deal with trauma. Mm-hmm. So pay attention to that. And pay attention to more episodes. We thank you and hope that you have more hope for this holiday season.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will talk with you soon.
Thank you as always for listening, and please be sure to leave us a review. While this podcast can't be a replacement for therapy, we hope you enjoyed our discussion today and join us again next time. Nystrom & Associates is always available to those who are struggling. If you find yourself in need of support and help, please check us out at nystromcounseling.com.